Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're diving into something that I am sure everyone listening has thought about at one point or another, especially after a delicious meal with a little too much garlic maybe. We're talking about whether green tea can actually banish bad breath and not just mask it like those minty breath fresheners do. No, we want to know if it can actually tackle the root of the problem. And because I know you all love to get right into it, we've rounded up a ton of research on green tea and how good it might actually be as a mouthwash. We're talking like fascinating studies, surprising statistics, you name it.
Hello! Yes, we're going way beyond just anecdotal evidence today, folks. Get ready to explore the nitty-gritty science behind green tea's impact on halitosis.
Okay, so halitosis, just a fancy word for bad breath, right?
Oh, yeah.
So let's break this down. I think we all know that not so fresh feeling, but what's actually like the science behind it? What causes it?
Well, it really comes down to these little troublemakers. They're called volatile sulfur compounds, or VSCs for short.
VSCs, okay.
And they're basically produced by the bacteria that are just hanging out in their mouths.
Ugh, lovely.
Yeah, so think of them as the bad guys behind bad breath. They release these smelly sulfur compounds into the air, and voila.
That's us, we're the voila.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But you know, it's interesting. I was reading that just rinsing your mouth with water can actually temporarily reduce bad breath by up to 50%.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a mini reset for your mouth. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, if just plain old water can do that, imagine what something like green tea, with all its active compounds, could do.
Yeah, that really highlights how sometimes even the simplest solutions can have, like, a real impact.
Right.
But you're right, we're here to talk about more long-lasting freshness.
Exactly.
So let's dive into green tea.
Yes, please. And you know, speaking of long lasting, did you know that drinking 3 cups of green tea every single day has been linked to adding up to 2 years to your lifespan?
Wow.
Yeah. I know what you're thinking. Correlation doesn't equal causation.
Right.
And you're absolutely right. This is from observational studies, not like, hard proof or anything. But I got to say, it's still pretty intriguing, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's definitely something to be said about a drink that's been enjoyed for centuries and just might have, some life-extending benefits on the side.
Exactly. I mean, I'm a tea lover as is, but like knowing it could potentially add a couple of years, I'm brewing a whole pot right now, but it also kind of makes you wonder, what else can this super drink do?
Yeah.
I mean, we already know it's good for reducing plaque, which is a win for oral health in general.
Yeah.
But could it actually combat those pesky VSEs, the ones causing the bad breath?
Right. That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And what's so interesting is that when you look at the research, it's not a simple yes or no. There are actually some pretty conflicting findings out there.
Oh, really? So it's not as straightforward as we might hope.
Yeah, it's a little more complicated than that.
Okay, so tell me more. What do you mean? Okay, so tell me more. What do you mean?
Well, see, some of the studies showed really promising results for green tea. Like, there was this one study where a green tea rinse actually did a better job than chlorhexidine at fighting certain kinds of bacteria.
Wait, really? Chlorhexidine, like the gold standard antibacterial rinse?
Yeah,
That's impressive.
right. Like, that's saying something. It definitely suggests that green tea has some serious potential.
Right.
But then, on the other hand, there are other studies that found chlorhexidine to be more effective overall.
Oh, really?
And then there's even one study where a green tea mouthwash was no more effective than water after just 1 minute.
Whoa, hold on. So in one study, it's better than the gold standard, and in another one, it's no better than water. I mean, that's a pretty wild difference. How can the results be so different?
Yeah, and it really all comes down to how these studies were designed. You see, like, they use different types of participants in these different studies. They use different forms of green tea. Some use rinses, others use tablets or extracts. It wasn't all the same. And they even measured the results differently from one study to the next.
So it's not as easy as just saying, like, green tea works or green tea doesn't work. It's about understanding all the little differences, the nuances between all these different studies.
Exactly. And that's actually what makes this one long-term study that we found so interesting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it kind of stands out from the crowd because it was really well designed, and the results were, I gotta say, pretty compelling.
Okay, now you've got me on the edge of my seat. Tell me everything. What made this study so special?
Well, this study, unlike a lot of the others, this one followed participants for a whole month, and it used a double-blind, placebo-controlled design.
Right.
So that means that neither the researchers nor the participants actually knew who was getting the real deal green tea rinse and who was just getting the placebo.
Ah, yes, the gold standard. That
Exactly.
makes the results much more reliable.
Absolutely. And you know what they found? A nearly 40% reduction in those bad breath compounds we were talking about earlier, those volatile sulfur compounds,
Okay.
in the group using the green tea rinse.
Hold on. 40%, that's huge.
Yeah, it's a lot, especially when you compare it to the placebo group who only saw about a 10% reduction.
Huh.
So this really suggests that regularly rinsing with green tea, it could make a real difference over the long term.
Okay, so it's not like an instant fix, but if you use a green tea rinse regularly, it could actually make a real difference.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty promising. So are we saying, like, ditch the drugstore mouthwashes, toss them out, and just go all in on green tea?
Well, I'd pump the brakes on that just a little bit.
Okay.
You see, while this long-term study was really promising, we do have to remember that the research on green tea and bad breath, it's still, it's still kind of going on.
Right.
We'd need to see a lot more studies like this one to say for sure exactly how well it works and how it compares to other types of treatments.
So I guess it's not like a magic bullet or anything,
Right.
but it could be like a really helpful thing to add to our routine, like on top of still brushing, flossing, all that good stuff.
Exactly. Think of it more as a complementary treatment, something that might give you like a little extra edge.
Okay, that makes sense. This actually makes me wonder about something we were talking about, like garlic breath earlier.
Yeah.
So if green tea can actually handle something as strong as garlic breath, could it be like especially effective for other kinds of food-related bad breath? Like what about like, onions or
Yeah.
coffee breath? You know what I mean?
Now that's an interesting thought.
All right.
Yeah, and it really highlights an important area for, some future research. Like,
Right.
what other kinds of potent odor-causing compounds could green tea maybe neutralize? There's still so much more to find out.
That's so cool. It's like a whole new world of possibilities for fresher breath.
Yeah.
So I guess like the takeaway here is if you're looking for a natural way to, maybe step up your oral hygiene game, a green tea rinse could be worth trying. And hey, while you're at it, why not brew yourself a nice cup of green tea? It's good for the body, potentially good for the breath, and it definitely makes for a pretty thought-provoking conversation. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.